Across 10 movies, because yeah, we include the Curse of La Llorona, the Conjuring universe has a lot of lore. From the origins going back hundreds of years to the more modern-era investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren, there's a lot to keep up with. So to help with this, we've compiled the complete Conjuring timeline in chronological order. First, we have to talk about books. Sorry for you non-readers out there. The Devil's Welcome scene in Annabelle is pretty much the central text of the Conjuring universe. In it, a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls called the Curses of Belial is mentioned. Belial is the devil personified, and we also learn in the book of other demons in Belial's service. This includes both Malthus and Valak, who will play an enormous role in the franchise. But now we begin our journey in 304 AD. First, they tried to burn her, but Lucy wouldn't burn. They gouged her eyes out before killing her. What happened to the eyes, you ask? Lucy's family took them and fled with them in a holy relic that we'll see again later, so stay tuned. Family members of Lucy go into hiding and scatter across Europe, which allows for a wide lineage to be cast through the generations to follow. As we'll later see, that'll include both Sister Irene from the Nun films and Lorraine Warren. Now, sometime in the Middle Ages, the Duke of St. Carta builds an abbey in Romania. He becomes an expert on witchcraft and demons, authoring several texts on both. Later, these texts are seen in the first Nun film when Father Burke studies them and learns the name Valak. Hell uses this knowledge of the Duke to get him to perform rituals that'll open a gateway in the abbey that allows Valak to escape into the world. But before he can complete the ceremony, the church intervenes and stops him, sealing the rift with the blood of Christ himself. Now onward to 1673 in Mexico, a woman is enraged when she discovers that the father of her children slept with another woman. She drowns her 2 boys in the river, then takes her own life right after. This creates the Curse of La Llorona. Now, a couple decades later, in 1692, Mary Town Eastley is accused of witchcraft and executed by hanging on September 22nd. She is seen in 2013's The Conjuring, and the story is consistent with the narrative by the real-life parents that there were numerous spirits in the house, not just Bathsheba. Bathsheba and Mary Town Eastley were related, and while Mary wasn't a witch, Bathsheba most certainly was. Only a few days after giving birth, Bathsheba sacrifices the newborn child to Satan. When her husband catches her in the act, Bathsheba flees to a tree near the water and hangs herself, but not before professing her love for Satan and swearing that she will haunt anyone who occupies her lands in the future. She keeps that commitment. In the 1930s, a family moved into the house and Bathsheba possessed the mother, forcing her to kill her son and then die by suicide. There's a lot of other deaths too, since the land was broken up and divided over the years, and what was once a 200-acre plot now has many homes on it. In the 1930s, Irene Palmer's mother is taken away after saying that she has visions. Irene has them too, and her father is ready to have her committed as well, until the church hears of Irene's abilities. Cardinal Conroy sees to it that the church gets to Irene before the doctors do, and she then begins a life of faith. During World War II, the abbey at St. Carta is bombed by the Nazis, doing significant damage to the abbey. The bombing damages the gateway, allowing Valak to partially escape. Valak takes the form of a nun to hide amongst the nuns charged with praying over the gateway and keeping it sealed. Ed and Lorraine Warren meet in 1944 while Ed is working at a movie theater. Ed is 16 at the time. They both share their supernatural experiences with each other and find that the other is the first to really believe them. That's when and how they fall in love. In 1946, Samuel Mullins and Esther Mullins go to church with their daughter Bee, which we'll learn is short for Annabelle. On the way home, Bee is tragically struck and killed by a vehicle. Stricken with grief, the Mullins reach out to any force that will allow them to communicate with their daughter again. The demon Malthus sees this as an opportunity and begins appearing in different ways around the Mullins' house, allowing the grieving parents to think it is the ghost of their daughter. This is the infestation phase of the 3 phases the Warrens talk about. As Malthus grows in strength, it appears in the form of Bee, leaving notes with the words just saying, "Please." It's asking the Mullins to allow it to possess the doll, a doll that Samuel made as the owner of the Mullins Toy Company. Once given permission, Malthus moves to the oppression stage. Esther and Samuel figure out that this isn't their daughter, and instead they've been tricked by something else. Esther looks to confront the demon when Malthus takes a darker form and attacks Esther, causing her to lose her eye. With the help of the church, the doll is sealed in a closet lined with pages from the Bible. The doll is covered with holy water in an effort to contain it, and for years, it works. The power of Malthus was contained. In the early 1950s, Sister Charlotte, the nun from Annabelle Creation, visits the abbey at St. Carta. While there, she meets other nuns and gets her picture taken with them. If you look closely, you'll see an extra nun in the image off to the right. In 1952, Father Kastner has been given the task by the church to study the occult so that the church can better understand how to combat it. This is actually consistent with some patterns in history, with the Nazi obsession with the occult in World War II causing religious organizations to become more vigilant about it in post-war years. While Kastner is studying the occult to learn to fight it, his daughter is actually studying it in order to wield it. His daughter's name is Isla. We'll learn more about her when the Warrens encounter her in 1981. At the Abbey at St. Carta, Sister Jessica tries to get the relic that contains the blood of Christ to reseal the rift. She gets the key opening the place where the relic is, but she ultimately fails in her task. But before she dies, she tells Sister Victoria that the demon must not be allowed to enter the world. It can only enter the world fully if it takes a soul. To prevent this from happening, the sister has to take her own life by jumping out the window of the Abbey and hanging herself. There, she's discovered by Maurice, also known as Frenchie, when he's coming to the Abbey to make the quarterly delivery from the nearby village. Of the many nuns who were at the Abbey to keep the rift sealed, none remain now. In the years since World War II, Valak, in the nun form, has managed to eliminate them all. Cardinal Conroy, wanting to understand the strange happenings at the Abbey, sends Father Burke and Irene Palmer, not yet a nun, to investigate. Irene is sent because of her gift of having visions. In Romania, the two enlist the help of Frenchie to take them to the Abbey. On the way, they see all the crosses in the ground, and it is observed that those crosses are there to keep evil trapped inside rather than keeping it out. Once they arrive, Maurice can't leave fast enough, and honestly, who would blame him after what he saw? As he's traveling, though, he encounters an undead Sister Victoria in the forest. Hey, just a reminder, if you like learning more about The Conjuring, we have a bunch of videos either available now or on the way soon about film breakdowns, the histories of the demons of Warren's encounter, and a whole lot more. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss one when it drops. Since Father Burke has experience investigating strange happenings and Irene sees visions, it explains their encounters with the nuns or the abbot, since in reality, Burke and Irene are the only living souls inside the abbey and during the events of the nun. Every encounter they have is with either a ghost or possibly even Valak taking a different form. Irene and Burke don't realize it at first, but will later in the events of the nun. One of the ghost nuns informs Irene how to seal the gateway using the relics, so hey, they're not all bad. Father Burke survives being buried alive, and in his research, learns that the demon haunting them and making the abbey unholy ground is actually Valak, the defiler, the profane, and the Marquis of Snakes.
Valak, the defiler, the profane, the Marquis of Snakes.
Burke survives another attack by the undead Sister Victoria and is saved by Frenchie, who came back early to help the duo. Irene says they can't leave yet because they have to seal the gateway or Valak will escape. The trio finds the relic in the catacombs using a statue of Mary. When the light shines on Mary's finger, the light points to the location the key will open. Irene goes to seal the gateway, but Valak emerges and takes Irene as a vessel to block anyone from sealing the gateway. Frenchie gets some of the blood on Irene, and that frees Irene from the hold Valak had on her. Valak then attacks Maurice and eventually takes him as a vessel, setting up the events of the Nun II. When Valak attacks Irene and moves to destroy the relic, it finds the relic broken. Irene then spits a bunch of Jesus into Valak's face, presumably sending the demon back to hell. But we know better, there's going to be sequels. 4 years after the events of the Nun, Father Burke has sadly passed on from cholera, scheduling conflicts, or maybe even salary demands. Frenchie has made his way across Europe, unaware that he's been used by Valak as an instrument of evil that has left a trail of death in its wake. Valak seeks the eyes of St. Lucy, which, if you remember, are held in a relic by St. Lucy's family, which then spread out and hiding across Europe after she was killed in 304 AD. Valak believes that the eyes will help it regain some of its lost power. The victims left across Europe were all descendants of St. Lucy, who Valak murders when he's confident they don't have the eyes. This pattern alarms the church, which sends Sister Irene to investigate because the deaths follow a path that can be traced back to Romania, the location of the abbey Sister Irene investigated 4 years earlier. She is joined by Sister Deborah, and they recognize that the trail of death matches the journey Maurice has taken across Europe to this boarding school. Irene discovers that they're dealing with Valak when the demon reveals himself to her at a newsstand, followed by Irene having a vision that reveals the entire truth to her. Through research, Irene and Deborah discover that the eyes were buried in a monastery, which now just happens to be a boarding school, the very same boarding school Maurice is now at. They reach the school and restrain Maurice just in time, heading to the chapel to try to find the relic. The eye of a goat in a stained glass window leads the way. It's in a very Raiders of the Lost Ark fashion. And the sisters are able to recover the relic. Meanwhile, the goat in the glass has disappeared, becoming a real evil monster goat that attacks the girls at the school. All of the sisters recover the eyes. Valak gets his hands on them and is able to regain its power. Then it attempts to burn Sister Irene, but being a descendant of St. Lucy, Irene won't burn. Irene and Deborah join in the Eucharistic prayer, which turns countless of barrels of wine into the blood of Christ. As we know from the first film, the blood of Christ can defeat Valak. Although Valak is defeated, he's not gone. The demon is still using Maurice as a vessel, which the Warrens will have to exorcise in future years. Hey, remember that time the Mullins locked Annabelle in the holy closet to seal the evil of Malthus? Well, that was fun while it lasted. 12 years after the death of Bee and the haunting of Malthus on the Mullins' parents, the Mullins open the doors of their home to welcome orphans and a nun who have just been displaced. The nun is Sister Charlotte, who we met earlier in the video when she said she traveled to the abbey in Romania and had a picture taken with the nuns there. Charlotte knows that the Mullins home is the last chance for the girls to stay together, and she's determined to make it work. Among the girls is Janice, a girl who is disabled due to polio earlier in life. She's not only able to go outside and play with the others, but Janice is left in isolation a lot and is often excluded in activities and socially. This is important because this leaves Janice vulnerable to having weak faith, and Malthus preys on the weakest. That leads to Malthus haunting Janice, and it starts with the find me note like Bee would leave with her parents 12 years earlier. Janice takes the demon up on that, making her way to Bee's bedroom, normally locked by Mullins, but left unlocked by the demon. Janice looks around and finds the entrance to the closet where the Annabelle door is stored, opening the door and unknowingly allowing the demon to escape. The Annabelle doll begins appearing in places throughout the home randomly. The hauntings also begin in earnest toward everyone in the home, but still mostly focused on Janice. Janice makes another trip to Bee's room and finds her diary, which has a mysterious entry pages after the day she died. It simply says, "Today I came home." The Malthus demon then appears to Janice in the form of Bee, asking Janice if she will help her. When Janice asks what she needs, "Your soul." She then tells Janice that she wants her soul and proceeds to attack Janice, eventually dropping her from the second floor to the first. This leaves Janice in a wheelchair now and shatters whatever faith she still had, making her completely vulnerable to the demon. Malthus confronts Janice again, this time possessing her by vomiting some nasty stuff into her mouth. Then, the evil is truly unleashed. Mr. Mullins is killed, and after admitting everything to Sister Charlotte, Esther Mullins is killed in a truly brutal fashion for the girls to find in the third act. After this, absolute madness ensues until Charlotte can get a crucifix around Janice's neck and lock her in the closet with the Annabelle doll. Later, we learn that Janice has escaped by creating a hole in the wall. At the end of Annabelle Creation, we learn that Janice takes the name Annabelle when she's adopted by the Higgins family, who she would go on to murder in the Annabelle film. As an Easter egg, the Higgins family gives Janice a Raggedy Ann doll, which is a nod to the real-life Annabelle doll held in the Warrens' Occult Museum. In 1964, Ed and Lorraine Warren have started their careers as paranormal investigators. On their first case, they are called to investigate a demonic mirror. Lorraine makes contact with the mirror, allowing the demon to make contact with Warren's unborn daughter, Judy. The demon wants Judy, and Lorraine goes into labor. Ed rushes them into the hospital where Judy is stillborn and doesn't breathe for 1 whole minute when she's brought back by the power of the Warrens' faith. The demon's been denied Judy's soul today, but it doesn't forget. In 1968, Janice, now in the home of the Higgins family, runs away and joins the Disciples of the Ram, a cult that worships the devil and various demons, including Malthus. We still haven't seen the last of Janice quite yet. She'll be back in a couple more years. Now to 1970, when John and Mia Form live next to the Higgins family and are expecting their first child. Mia collects dolls, which is bound to end well in this franchise, and John gets her the doll that's been missing from her collection. You guessed it, it's the Annabelle doll, which has found its way back to near where Janice went. Janice, or Annabelle, returns to the Higgins home with another member of the Disciples of the Ram, and they murder the Higgins couple, then head next door where Mia is stabbed and Annabelle grabs the doll. Annabelle cuts her own throat while holding the doll, and some of her blood drips into its eye, possessing it with the demon Annabelle. The hauntings begin. The doll moves around the house and returns to the forms after John had thrown it away. The demon takes advantage of Mia's isolation while John is out of town and sets the house on fire. Mia tries to escape but is pulled back into the kitchen by an unseen entity. All these events cause the forms to nope the F out of that house and they move. Their daughter Leah is born, and of course the Annabelle demon wants its soul. Except a baby can't willfully give up its soul, so the demon is out to terrorize the baby in order to get Mia to give up her own soul to protect her child. Luckily, Mia meets Evelyn, who works at a bookstore that just so happens to have the Devil's Welcome, the key text with all Mia's answers, right in the front window. Evelyn is also very conveniently super knowledgeable about all of these things, which will come back to help Mia, John, and Leah in the third act. The Forms call upon their priest, who takes the doll and says he will call upon a married couple who will investigate these things to see if they can help. And yeah, Father Perez is referring to Ed and Lorraine Warren here. But Father Perez is attacked by the demon before he can get inside the church, and the demon returns the doll to the Form's residence for the final showdown. Mia wants to know what the demon wants, and she finds the answer written on the ceiling and on a window, offering her a chance to save Leah by giving Malthus her own soul. Evelyn, still grieving over the loss of her own child, sacrifices herself out the window while holding the Annabelle doll, satiating the demon's hunger for now. In 1971, a woman buys the Annabelle doll at an antique shop for her daughter Debbie, and the hauntings begin again for Debbie and her roommates. They call the Warrens, who come and take the doll after learning that Debbie gave the demon permission to occupy the doll. While transporting the doll home, they encounter a car accident that was orchestrated by Malthus to make the Warrens take an alternate route that would allow the demon to make the car stall in front of a cemetery. There, the Warrens learn that the doll is a beacon for spirits as the spirits rise from the cemetery, and one of them even pushes Ed in front of a truck that has been taken over by Malthus. The Warrens get the doll home and encase it in a case made up of materials from the church, having a priest come and bless it twice a month to keep the power from escaping. In addition, 1971 is when Maurice, aka Frenchie, had an exorcism to expel the demon Valak. The experience had a huge negative impact on Lorraine, who visibly shows it during the lecture when the exorcism Maurice is covered. This would be the negative event that caused Ed to want to protect Lorraine in the events of The Conjuring. Meanwhile, the Perron families just moved into their dream home in Rhode Island. What they don't know is that it's on land once owned by Jetson and Bathsheba Sherman. It's the same land that Bathsheba vowed to protect by cursing anyone who tried to inhabit it. We get a good idea of the layout of the home by watching the 5 girls play hide and clap throughout it. This game will come into play when the hauntings begin. So will that really creepy tree on the property near the water. Bathsheba begins haunting the family by leaving bruises on Carolyn and doing what seems to be her other favorite pastime of pulling on the children while they're in bed. The wardrobe seems to be a center of the disturbances as well as the basement, and we'll learn more about both of them later. Speaking of the basement, the girls discover when their game of hide and clap loosens boards put in place to seal the entrance to the lowest level. Roger Perron clears the boards, and he and Carolyn discover a basement with several items left from the previous owner. This includes a large mirror covered by a sheet. Mirrors play a huge role throughout the Conjuring franchise, and the sheet will come into play later in the film. Now, if we remember, the stages of demonic possession are infestation, oppression, and possession. Bathsheba targets the mother, so the demon sets out to wear down Carolyn's faith and spirit. We notice that the clocks stop every day at 3:07 a.m. That's Bathsheba's time of death. It's also consistent with the idea of the witching hour, a concept brought up in the recent Weapons as well. The family dog, Sadie, is found dead outside. Sadie could sense the evil in the house immediately and refused to enter it. Their daughter April was seen talking to the ghost of Rory, who was killed by his mother in the house decades earlier. Rory's going to play his role before the end, too. The hauntings continue to escalate, including a couple of particularly terrifying moments where Carolyn discovers a spirit playing hide and clap with her and the girls meeting Bathsheba atop their wardrobe. Carolyn attends a lecture by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Afterwards, she approaches the couple and asks for their help. Ed is skeptical, but Lorraine agrees when she sees the genuine nature of Carolyn's desperation. Ed is hesitant here because Lorraine experienced something so terrifying on an earlier case that she locked herself in her bedroom for days without even any food. He feels that every case takes a little bit out of them, but the last one took a big chunk. He's hesitant to take on more because he wants to protect Lorraine. The Warrens arrive at the Perron residence, and Lorraine can immediately sense evil in the house. Ed learns that the knocks at night come in threes, stating that it's a way for demons to mock faith, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. After a series of investigations, the hauntings increase in severity. Lorraine has visions, including seeing the body hanging from the tree where Ed and Lorraine are next to it. The witch Bathsheba eventually possesses Carolyn, and Carolyn gets Christine and April to the home while the rest of the family stays at a motel. Carolyn, true to Bathsheba's pattern, will seek to kill the 2 children. The Warrens rush to the rescue, and since there's no way the church can intervene in time, Ed attempts to perform the exorcism himself. It all goes to hell, so to speak, when Carolyn gets free from her restraints and Ed and Lorraine are thrown across the basement. Together, Ed and Lorraine help Carolyn defeat Bathsheba, Ed by trying to expel the witch, and Lorraine by getting Carolyn to remember the good she's fighting for.
Bathsheba! By the power of God, I condemn you back to hell!
In 1972, the Warrens are out of town investigating a case, and Judy's being watched over by her babysitter, Mary Ellen. Judy's been feeling sad and isolated since her parents' profession has made her the subject of ridicule, and as a result, she doesn't have a whole lot of friends. This is amplified by the fact that it's her birthday soon and she fears no one will come. Mary Ellen and Judy are joined at the Warren house by Daniela, who's determined to get inside the Warren's spooky room of occult memorabilia, aka haunted artifacts and evidence. While Mary Ellen and Judy are out, Daniela finds the keys to the room and enters it, touching just about everything and opening the Annabelle case. Daniela wants into the room because she blames herself for the death of her father in a car accident 1 year earlier, and wants to communicate with him if she can. This is the type of pain Malthus takes advantage of. Daniela leaves the case unlocked, and Malthus uses this opportunity to break the doll out of the case. Since we learned earlier that the doll is a beacon for other spirits, we soon see the demons and spirits from all the artifacts in the Warrens Museum throughout the house. This includes the ferryman, Annabelle showing up in places throughout the house leaving a note saying, "Miss me," a bride in a wedding dress, a werewolf, and Danielle even sees a demon taking the form of her dad to lure her back into the house and the museum. Judy is vulnerable because she has visions like her mother. Not only are her experiences more powerful than Mary Ellen's or Daniela's, she's more affected by it. After a night of extreme chaos, Judy is able to get the Annabelle doll back into the case, despite one last effort from Malthus to take her soul. The case is locked, and Judy declares the evil has been contained.
The evil has been contained.
It's a happy ending for the Warrens, too, as Judy's birthday party is attended by Mary Ellen and Bob, Daniela, and several of Judy's classmates. All seems well with the Warrens, and their lives on screen will remain quiet, at least for a while, but out west, that won't be the case. So, quick note, the Curse of La Llorona technically isn't canon or part of the official timeline according to Warner Brothers, but it is. Father Perez, the priest in the film, is also an Annabelle, and the Curse of La Llorona includes footage of him carrying the Annabelle doll. So there. Remember that woman who caught her husband cheating and drowned her 2 children in a fit of rage? Yeah, that curse is still alive and well. Anna's a caseworker in Los Angeles, and she's checking on the welfare of the 2 children of one of her charges. She finds the 2 boys locked in the closet, and their mother screams for them to be left there for their protection. When Anna tries to take them, the mother attacks her and she's taken away by police. At the child services center, Tomas sleepwalks and his brother goes looking for him. The 2 brothers are found dead, having been drowned in a river. Patricia, the boy's mother, tells Anna that she blames her and that she prayed to La Llorona to take the lives of Anna's children and allow her own children to come back. Then the hauntings begin. Anna meets with Father Perez, the connection to the Conjuring universe, and then enlists the help of former priest Rafael Olvera, who helps the family stay protected throughout the night, and is able to defeat La Llorona with a cross, stabbing her in the chest with it. In 1976, the Warrens investigate the Amityville case, one of their most famous cases. While doing so, Lorraine has a vision that sees her follow the path of Ronald DeFeo on the night of the murders. The path takes her down to the basement where she discovers a mirror. In it, she sees a reflection of Valak. After turning around a couple of times and seeing nothing, she turns back and Valak is there, grabbing Lorraine around the throat. Lorraine then sees a vision of Ed being impaled by a large spear, something we would later learn to be part of a tree.
This is as close to hell as I ever want to get.
Let's fast forward a year, and Lorraine is still hesitant to take on new cases because of her fear of Ed suffering the fate she saw in her vision. This is Valak's work. The demon is trying to keep the 2 strong investigators away, maybe out of fear that they'd be able to send the demon back to hell. At the Warren home, Lorraine is concerned when she finds Ed painting Valak, the very same demon she'd seen in Amityville 1 year earlier. It appears Ed has some clairvoyance too, especially through his art. Later, Lorraine has a vision where she sees Valak in their home. Valak inhabits the painting of the nun on the wall and charges at Lorraine. In reality, Lorraine had been furiously writing something that we'll discover later on the pages of her Bible during the vision. At the same time, the Hodgson family in Enfield, North London is experiencing hauntings. The family is struggling in poverty, and the mother's faith is shaken, leaving the family vulnerable. Janet appears to be the target of the demon, and Janet is caught holding a cigarette for her friend early in the film. Janet's mother doesn't believe her when the girl says she wasn't smoking, an indication that Janet's not going to be believed about the hauntings either. The early incidents surround a chair in the living room, the very chair Bill Wilkins had died in years earlier when he lived there. The spirit of Wilkins is there, but we learn later that he's not there to harm the Hodgsons. He's being used by Valak to break down the Hodgson spirit. The hauntings intensify, including incidents where the youngest Billy is haunted by a toy truck and then Valak in the form of the Crooked Man. Peggy, the mother, doesn't believe Janet's claims until she sees the incidents for herself. The Hodgsons enlist the help of their neighbors, but the hauntings continue even there, with that family's dog even transforming into the Crooked Man. The Warrens are called in against Lorraine's better judgment, and the investigation begins. This includes discovering that Bill Wilkins is speaking through Janet. They're joined by other investigators, including one who thinks the family made it all up, which there is actually some evidence of in real life. Ed and Lorraine leave after they think they found evidence of the girls staging an incident. But then on the train, they discover that it's the work of the demon. They rush back to the home where Ed has to break in on the lower level. Lorraine finds her way inside and sets up the final confrontation with Valak. Ed is hanging precariously out the window holding onto Janet while Valak tries to keep Lorraine from getting to him. This is all with the really scary Spike below them waiting to impale Ed to make Lorraine's vision come true. Lorraine, being a descendant of St. Lucy, is able to defeat Valak by using the demon's name.
You are Valak! The Defiler! The Profane! The Marquis of Snakes!
Which is what she had written on the pages of her Bible during her vision. Remember we talked about Father Kastner and his daughter Isla? Well, Isla isn't only studying the occult anymore, now she's beginning to practice what she's learned. She casts a curse that requires the death of 3 individuals. They must each take the life of someone else and then themselves. Jessica Strong is the first victim. She is cursed and put under a spell to kill her own friend and then jump off a cliff. The next is David Glatzel, an 8-year-old boy. His family is convinced that David is the victim of demonic possession, which is really the curse at work. It brings a demon in temporarily and then makes the person kill. The Warrens are brought in and they assist in an exorcism with the boy. As the exorcism goes south, Arnie Johnson, boyfriend of David's sister, tells the demon to take him instead and leave the boy alone. The demon obliges, but not before Ed has a heart attack at the hands of David and the demon. Artie, now possessed by the demon, stabs his landlord 22 times and is arrested for murder. He'll claim it's the result of demonic possession, and the Warrens are brought in again to try to help prove these claims. It's the first time in American history that a demonic possession defense has been used in a murder trial. Since the curse only temporarily moves the demon in, it's already gone, which makes all this really hard to prove. However, discovering the witch's totem at the home is the first piece of evidence the Warrens find. This tells them there was actually a curse, and that the curse moved from David to Arnie when Arnie told the demon to leave the boy alone. Father Gordon sends the Warrens to speak with Father Kastner, as he is an expert on the occult, and because he'd been involved in exposing the disciples of the Ram some years earlier. Kastner advises the couple while conveniently leaving out any information about his daughter, who's now trying to complete this stage of the curse by getting Arnie to take his own life. Arnie resists this, surviving attempts on his life, but at the same time Lorraine uses her clairvoyant ability to learn the truth about Jessica Strong, the first victim of the curse. Jessica's body, which had not been found, is finally discovered in the lake. Lorraine and Ed go to the funeral home so Lorraine can make contact with the body, hoping that will trigger a vision. It does, showing Lorraine an altar where Isla is cursing Arnie to kill himself. Lorraine intervenes, causing Isla to see Lorraine and attack the Warrens by sending one of the other bodies in the morgue after them. Ed breaks the connection just in time, but for now, Lorraine has discovered what is afoot. Isla isn't done with the Warrens, though. She has snuck a totem into the Warrens' home, cursing Ed and attempting to make the famous investigators her third victims. Ed almost kills Lorraine, and when they find the totem in their home, they know the witch is after them too. Lorraine goes to speak with Father Kastner again, but using the power of maps, Ed discovers that the Kastner home is the center of evil activity. His wife is now in danger. Kastner admits the truth about his daughter to Lorraine and says the altar must be in one of the tunnels underneath the house. Destroying the altar will mean stopping the curse. While Lorraine searches the tunnels, Isla murders her father and then places another curse on both Arnie and Ed. While Arnie fights for his life in the hospital, Ed is now in the same state he was when he almost killed Lorraine earlier. Lorraine breaks him out of it, allowing Ed to destroy the altar. Isla dies at the hands of the demon, who still insisted that the curse must be completed. As for the trial, Arnie Johnson was convicted of manslaughter and served 5 years. In real life, this is what happened too after the judge refused to allow any evidence of testimony regarding demonic possession to be allowed in the trial. However, manslaughter was a lesser charge than what he could have been convicted of. In 1986, the Warrens are mostly retired from investigative work in the field, focusing mostly on their lecture series, which has a lot less interest than it once did. Judy Warren, their daughter, is engaged to Tony Spira, and both Warrens are having a hard time letting go of their daughter. Meanwhile, the Smurl family in West Pittston, Pennsylvania, is experiencing hauntings throughout the home that begin after a creepy-looking mirror is brought into the house. The demon inside the mirror controls 3 other spirits in the home, using them to haunt the Smurls, including making one of their daughters vomit blood and even sexually assaulting Jack Smurl in the night. Father Gordon tries to get the Warrens to intervene, but they say no, and then Gordon travels to the Smurl household himself. In an effort to help them, he goes to the Diocese of Scranton to try to get the church to perform an exorcism in the home. There, the demon attacks Gordon, causing him to take his own life. At Gordon's funeral, Judy places her hand on the casket, giving her a vision of what happened to Gordon. She travels to West Pittston to try to help the Smurls on her own. There, the demon is able to possess her and slowly break her down. When Ed, Lorraine, and Tony learn where Judy went, they rush to the Smurl home to help. Then, Ed tries to transport the mirror out of the home and to the occult museum, but the demon prevents it from leaving. Ed attempts to perform an exorcism on the mirror, but that fails. Lorraine finally encourages Judy to embrace her ability, and the family is able to defeat the demon in the mirror together. At Tony and Judy's wedding, Lorraine tells Ed of another vision she saw in which they grow old together, surrounded by love, and they finally write their book. Which part of the Conjuring timeline is your favorite? Do you have a favorite demon or villain? Let us know in comments, and please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for a whole lot more on the Conjuring and other horror franchises. Stay strange out there, everybody.